Hi, Scott. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Good.
I'm here a little early, so I'll just hang out for a bit.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. Good morning, Marilyn.
Good morning. Whoops. Good morning, Katie. Sorry, I thought my mic was off. Hey, before we get a bunch of people in here, I just want to say something to you.
Sure.
Thank you for your polished presentation. I have to tell you the difference. Yeah, no, thank you so much. No, thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
This is not easy. I don't know
really
what you've done with your
appreciate
3
it.
children. Good. I don't know what
Right
you did
now-
with the kids, but
Right now, my husband has them on the other side of the house.
there you go.
Although I woke up this morning, I don't know if you can hear it, but my neighbor is getting their roof replaced.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
So I swapped over to my AirPods for my audio, and I hope that it'll filter some of the hammering
Yeah, I can't.
out.
Oh, okay. The pneumatic, the nail gun. Yeah.
Yep. I can, it's not distracting at all. I can see the man walking on the roof about 18 feet from my window.
Oh my. All of these new things, that
Yep.
we didn't think about before. We're not home right now. Yeah.
Good morning, Vicki.
Good morning, sunshine. How are you?
Hey, Vicki.
Good.
Hey, Marilyn. How are you?
I'm okay. How about you, kiddo?
I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. That's what I just keep telling myself.
Vicki.
I'm okay. Yeah.
So I heard Jen Carter yesterday, and she wants to get together over the ALL stuff. Once we know about the online access for kids.
Right.
So I'm going to let Cher know and see if we can't maybe do some kind of a Google Meet informally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is
I'm not actually.
my
I'm
hope.
not actually.
I don't want to.
3D.
Okay, so you don't have 3D. Damn.
I know. I'm really
Shoot.
sad. I have 11th grade though, so I'm happy about that. But I'm sad.
Oh. Okay. So do you have ALL then for 11th grade?
Yeah, I have ALLC and then 3 sections of 9th grade English.
Aha. Okay.
Yeah, sad face. It is what it is, though. It is what it is. So I'm just gonna make the best of it.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, good morning, guys. As I've got folks rolling in, you can access the sign-in sheet with the bit.ly up on the slides, as well as access the slides themselves. I've got quite a few clickable links and things that you can explore in the slide deck. So I would encourage you to both sign in, because that's how you get paid, and open up those slides, because we'll be referencing them throughout the morning together. And I'll probably say it more than once, but man, guys, I apologize. My neighbor is apparently getting a new roof, and the hammering just started this morning. So I swapped my audio over to some headphones, and I'm hoping that that'll help mitigate some of the sound, but I do apologize. It's apparently roof season. And we'll start about 10 o'clock once we get everybody in and signed in and have the documents up. Michelle, your picture is your little cute puppies. So cute. Michelle has like some top-notch cute puppies. Again, as folks are coming in, please take a chance to go ahead and sign in at the bit.ly. I have it posted on number 2, as well as go ahead and open up the slides in another tab, because there are lots of clickable resources that you'll be able to use throughout the slides, and I want to get those in your hands as quickly as possible. All right, so I'm assuming we'll have a couple folks poking in the next couple minutes, but again, after you've signed in and you've opened up the slides, I do want to be upfront about the design of this session. I took a look at participant names and saw some people I'm really familiar with and some folks that I'm not. So I just wanted to be upfront about the session description and the focus of what we're going to be doing. But this session is designed for current Salinas Union High School District teachers who are new to teaching with the SpringBoard ELA materials. And so we're going to be going through some overviews of the program today, as well as diving into digital resources and things that you can use within your classroom. And just to be upfront, this may not be the session for you if you're not teaching English language arts grades 7 through 11, or you're not supporting one of those classes in any sort of capacity. It may also not be the right session for you if you've been teaching using SpringBoard for the last couple of years, because this is really going to be more of a foundational session as opposed to very in-depth for folks who have been using and implementing the program. So just in terms of transparency's sake, I wanted to make sure I had everybody in the right space and that the session was going to meet your needs. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in, 10:01. So I've got our norms up here. You've probably seen these if you've attended other teach prep sessions, but please participate positively. Use the chat for questions and comments. We do have a smaller group than most of the other sessions, so I think I will be able to do a pretty good job of balancing the chat room in addition to facilitating. Mute your audio when you're not talking, but there are going to be plenty of opportunities to unmute and share, answer questions, or ask questions throughout the session. And then the last piece is to stay focused on what's within our control. I'm going to be getting you into some digital resources, and I am crossing my fingers that logins and everything works as planned, but we also know that sometimes it doesn't. So just bear with me if that ends up being us. Also, please don't forget that follow-up support will be provided. This isn't really like a one and done type of session. There will be additional resources, additional opportunities for coaching, and additional professional development throughout the year. And then I've got some resources for you at the end of the slides. And then I wanted to include with you my diagram of a Zoom or Google Meet, attention span. So I know you have a lot of stuff going on. Just like I shared, I've got my neighbor redoing their roof. And so try to do our best, try to stay here, stay positive. This is a longer session. We've got 2 hours blocked. So I'll try somewhere in the middle to give you guys an opportunity to stand up and run to the bathroom and take a little bit of a stretch break, and we'll make the best of it. And Michelle, yep, you're in the right place. So I want to dive in with kind of our agenda for the day together. So we're going to start with a really brief overview of the history of the program. I'd like for you to understand kind of where SpringBoard came from and how we as a district adopted it, and what our story has been throughout the past 4 years. And then we're going to dive right in and take a look at some core components of SpringBoard and take a look at the unit planning process, as well as how to unpack an embedded assessment, which is the key feature of the program design. And from there, we're going to transition into SpringBoard Digital and all the online resources that you have access to during digital learning and during regular learning as well. And then we'll end our session today with a big chunk of time for you to explore activities and resources and strategies and start working through some planning, as well as having a general question and answer. So this is kind of going to be our flow together today. And with that, we're just going to go ahead and dive right in. Okay. So history of SpringBoard, just a couple slides here. I think it's helpful to kind of ground yourself in understanding how this program was developed, where it came from, and again, the story in our district. And so I'm not going to read to you all the slides, so you've got access to them, but what is important to know is that SpringBoard started as a group of College Board AP teachers teaching the 11th grade and 12th grade AP course who came together and designed a task force called Pacesetter. But essentially what they did is they created little mini units of instruction to bring into the lower grade levels. So they were these little standalone units to bring into 10th grade, to bring into 9th grade, to start to get students ready for the rigors and the demand of the AP classes. And then over the years, from like 2000 to 2016, the materials kept evolving. And so they went from single units of instruction to more vertically aligned units to a comprehensive curriculum. And in 2016, it was one of the approved programs in the state of California for both English language arts and English language development curriculum materials. Then in 2017, 2018, which is one of our adoption years, we got a kind of refresh, new materials. They used teacher focus groups, student focus groups, and made sure that the materials were not just vertically aligned to the AP test, but also vertically aligned within themselves to help prepare students for both college and career readiness. Now, in our district, we have, I think, a pretty interesting history. So in 2016, 2017, we had a team of over 30 teachers representing all schools and all grade levels come together and look at 5 different California approved English language arts curriculum. And this was done over the course of the year. And when the time came to vote and recommend a curriculum material for adoption, SpringBoard was unanimously voted as the recommendation from the Salinas Union High School District teachers. In the 2017-2018 school year, we had all of our English language arts teachers go through a 3-day launch training provided by College Board and 2 individual workshops throughout the year that served as an opportunity to extend learning. And then in 2018-2019, our second year of adoption, we did an in-house workshop for our new hires, as well as a CM Institute that was tightly aligned to SpringBoard. So I had the wonderful opportunity to work with Julie Cruz. If you know her from North Salinas High School, she is a teacher sent from heaven, and we had an amazing opportunity to really tailor the CM Institute in district to provide strong alignment to the SpringBoard instructional practices and materials. We also completed multiple cohort workshops and had a few folks trained as what they call Pathway 2 facilitators. And then last year, 2019-2020, we had a special new teacher cohort that met a couple times throughout the year, as well as PLC and site-specific coaching cycles. And then this year, this is the first time that we've had a SpringBoard session at the Teach Prep event over summer. We'll also be hosting some SpringBoard-specific training during new teacher orientation, as well as pop-up sessions throughout the semester as we get a stronger idea of what professional development is going to look like in kind of a time where it's a little difficult to plan, right? Because the plan keeps changing. So also going to be opportunities for one-on-one coaching. So if you want to meet with me, you want to work with me, that's something that I'm open to and going to be setting up some calendaring to go through some one-on-one coaching with folks. So that is kind of the history and where this program came from. I think it's just important to know before diving in that it was something that was rigorously vetted by a large group of teachers in our district, and it was something that was unanimously suggested to be our adopted material. So it's always great when something like that works out, and that's kind of how we got where we're at. With that, we're going to move into the second portion of today, and that's to talk about the unit planning process. And for a second, I'm going to push pause before we move forward, and I'm going to address, I know, or I'm going to assume that the number one question is going to be, Katie, how do I do this with distance learning? How are we going to do this all in one semester? See, Mickey just asked it, right? How are we going to do this all in one semester? Like, how on earth? And we are going to get there, but I think it's really important to understand the essential program components before you start hacking away at things to make the square box fit in the round hole, if that makes any sort of sense in terms of analogy. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the unit planning process, what it looks like. We're going to go through and take a look at a sample unit together this morning. And then I will dive into those digital materials, digital pacing, those kind of big, like how do we do this, Katie? And I will share everything that I can, okay? So SpringBoard has 4 essential components for their unit planning process. It's important to know at the middle school, there are 4 units of instruction, and at the high school, there are 5 units of instruction. The units don't necessarily go in the same order, meaning every grade level doesn't start with narrative and then move to argumentative and then move to expository. They're all unique in regards to the placement of their units, but the planning process is the same. And so I've got this graphic over here on the left side of the screen, and this is kind of how you loop in between the 4 steps of the planning process. And then I have some call outs that really show us what it is that you do during that section. And so the first thing we do when we're taking a look at a unit of instruction is we've got to get the big picture, okay? And so all sorts of things you can do here. There's planning the unit section. There's tons of great material, but this is really kind of creating what I like to call like the shopping cart experience. And what I mean by this is if, my child is in Marilyn's class and we're allowed to shop at the grocery store, and I bump my shopping cart into Marilyn's and I say, hey, Marilyn, what's Gwen doing in school? This get the big picture component is that little like blurb, like, oh, right now we're working on, right? That little kind of gist statement of what the unit's about. And so it's a good idea to, again, know what the components are of each unit are before we start figuring out how we do the pacing and the modification within this bizarre semester, right? So Michelle, could you copy and paste that link again? It looks like Jose's looking for it. Thank you. So what I'm gonna have you guys do is actually unpack a unit with me this morning. And so I've made a couple modifications here because typically this is something that we would do hard copy, but we're not doing it hard copy, we're doing it digitally. So we're taking a look at grade 10, unit 2. And what we're gonna do is unpack some of the components. And so I have on the screen in the white square the context of the unit. And typically what I would ask you to do is to circle the verbs and underline the nouns. But instead it's gonna have you go ahead and read through. If you have a piece of scrap paper, maybe you'll make a little T-chart where you have skills on the left and knowledge on the right, or maybe you'll just do it in your head. I'm not collecting your work. You don't have to turn it in. But what I'd like you to do is take a look and read over that context, and then in the chat, go ahead and complete the frame. Students study blank in order to learn blank. Great. I'm starting to see some good frames here. So we have students study their own society in order to learn about their culture. Students study culture and justice in order to learn how to convey an argument. Students study the past in order to learn about the present. Students study their own culture in order to learn how to explore the concept of justice. Students examine their culture in order to learn about narrative and narrative techniques to use in their writing. Students study different types of text in order to learn how to write arguments. A good kind of at-a-glance view of what this unit of instruction is going to be about. Let's dive into the next step. Okay, so after we take a look at the context, we're going to look at the instructional sequence. And so I'm going to ask that you, again, skim and scan the instructional sequence here. And in the chat, you're going to go ahead and add a summary statement. So the first half of the unit, students do this, and the second half of the unit, students do that. And I'll mute myself so you don't have to hear the hammering next door. Great, I'm seeing some good summary statements come in. So the first half of the unit, students will create a narrative that conveys the cultural perspective. And in the second half, students will develop an argument about an issue that resonates across cultures. In the first half of the unit, students create a narrative that has culture that conveys cultural perspective. And the second half, the students develop an argument. Okay, we're really starting to see the story of this unit and how it looks in its kind of entirety, right, as designed. So next, we're going to take a look at the AP/college readiness standards. And so if you are or have been an advanced placement teacher, some of these may look familiar to you, but if you haven't, what I want you to do is, while reading these 5 bullet points, I want you to think about connections to your current practice. Because these are things that you're already doing, irregardless of irregardless of if you're teaching an English course. And Jen, I'm going to go ahead and table that question for when we jump over into the website, okay? And then the task I have for you for this section is if you could share one of the following: something you already teach in your classroom or something that you want to know more about in regards to these AP/college readiness standards. Thanks, Melissa. I bet you do that in Avid, right? Right, and so David, you want to learn more about how stylistic effects are achieved. And so the purpose or kind of the element around this AP college readiness piece is really to highlight that the standards that these units are vertically aligned to don't just align directly to the AP courses, but they're life skills here, right? Reading closely to analyze genres, applying theories of text and situations, making connections. So like Marilyn said, close reading, it's fundamental to English 3D and our English learners, right? How do you incorporate what you've learned in previous years and what you're learning this year? But I just wanted to open this up that in addition to our Common Core State standards, we have a lot of really strong connections here to those higher levels of learning, which we want our kids to not just have access to, but to be successful in, okay? And with this, this is the last kind of task here, but out of everything that we've done so far today about grade 10, unit 2, what is your big picture of the unit? If I was pushing my cart through, you know, the grocery store or through Target, I guess I picked a red cart, and I ran into you and I said, hey, what's happening, you know, right now in your class? What's the unit about? What would be your grocery store discussion? And I have a poll everywhere set up. You can either respond via the link at the top, or if you have your cell phone out, you can text 56137 to the number 22333, and it'll auto-populate here. What I was trying to emulate here is we're using our chat kind of as our place to put productive group work and to put our thinking, and the slideshow that you're submitting to is kind of like your final response. So that's how I'm separating the two tasks. But what's this unit about? We've looked at the embedded assessment, the overview, some of the standards. What are kids learning about?
So if I wanted to text, my recipient is 22333, and then in the message, the first thing I type is 56137.
Correct.
Okay.
Or you could type in like if you have another tab, do that poll ev.com/Katie Zelinsk. Couldn't fit the Y, I guess, 831. Either or will get you there. So the poll, Michelle, is just your kind of final thoughts. What is the big picture of the unit? What's this unit about? I haven't had anyone say they've been signed up for telemarketing, but in this day and age, David, who knows? Who knows? I've gotten like, I don't know, 3 calls from Florida this morning, and they're all about a timeshare that I don't have. I did want to share Poll Everywhere just as a little tech trip for you. I do like that you can add that text element. So like I'm seeing, we're studying, so it like, you know, will automatically populate here. So we're going to activate, and then, whoa, I made them big. So like we have a response here. We're studying how our cultures influence the stories we write, as well as analyzing the themes of justice across cultures. Ooh, that one's good. That one's good. It should pop up another one too, if someone else submits, but I don't know. We're on a computer. You guys could all just be like playing solitaire on your phone. Who knows, right? That's great. And then on my end, just in terms of how this works, I set it to be anonymous, but you could also set it up so that students have to share their name. But it's nice to just embed it into the slides. Okay, so units about relevance, I can read, promise. I'll wait for one more and then we'll move on to the next piece. Examining one's culture to inform their writing skills. Perfect. Thank you guys for participating. We're going to jump into the second step of unpacking a unit. Okay, so in step 1, no, I'm not interested in timeshares, Michelle. In step 1, we get the big picture of the unit. We understand the story of the 2 halves. We get an idea of the larger connections to the AP college readiness skills, and really just a bird's eye view. In the second stage of unpacking the unit, we go into internalizing the outcomes and looking at the embedded assessment. You might have seen that term a couple times in the previous slides, embedded assessment, and those are the cumulative tasks of the unit. And so if you remember back to those contexts in the first half, it said that students were writing a narrative, and in the second half, students were writing an argument. And so we're going to dive in and take a look at the assignments and the scoring guide for these different assessments and see what does it look like to unpack it and kind of what's the value in it. Okay, I do have a question for you in the chat box while I switch my screen over to my document camera. Fingers crossed I do it right. But what do you think is the value in having students be involved in and have an understanding of the necessary skills and concepts of an upcoming like final assessment or something that they're going to be held accountable for? So take a look at that while I work on swapping my screen over. Thank you, Michelle. So I'm going to stop presenting and switch my windows, but you're still taking a look at this. What's the value in having students be involved in unpacking the embedded assessment? Okay, I'm crossing my fingers. If someone who has their camera on can just give me a thumbs up that you now see my document camera. Yes, it worked. It almost never works the first time, so I'm excited. All right, so what I have right here, let's take a look at the responses first. All right, so students know about how individual lessons contribute to the goal. They're more invested, they're more prepared. They know what to study. It focuses them on what they need to study, what they need to learn. They can feel included. Students can self-assess. Scott, I connected my document. I purchased my own document camera, and I just plugs in via USB. Good investment. It was like $60 on Amazon.
Cool. Can you give us that link later when you're done with the presentation?
Yep.
And also,
Sure do.
I was wondering, so the way you switch it is just like you would switch with a webcam with USB. You just go to the 3 little dots on the bottom, and then you switch in your settings. You switch to the camera.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Because yeah, I'm trying to figure it out on how to do it. Also, if anybody has a Canon DSLR camera, those they have a software that you can download from Canon that you can make those into webcams as well. Like you do like a document camera. Okay, just want to let everybody know. Thank you.
Great resource. Thanks, Scott. I will share my document camera in the chat at the end. Okay. So what I have here is I have a student. Look at my fingers. I have a student copy of Embedded Assessment 1. You know it's a student copy because there's no teacher wrap around the outside, right? Like it's just kind of the blown up teacher instructions. I just want to show you the format of the embedded assessment. So students are going to see an assignment up here in a blue box with white text, and then they're going to see questions for planning, for drafting, for evaluating and revising their work, for publishing their work, and then some reflection questions. And so for this particular assignment up here, students are writing a narrative about an incident that's either real or imagined, and that conveys cultural perspective. Throughout the unit, students are studying multiple kind of subgenres of narrative, and they're exploring multiple cultural perspectives. And their task is to select a genre that they feel most appropriate to convey either a real or fictional experience that includes one or more elements of culture. So it was kind of hard to mark up the blue text and have you guys see it. So I just took some notes on a little sticky note here just to unpack the prompt. So I know that I'm writing a narrative. I know that it's either going to be a real life experience that I've had, or I can make it up. Okay. I know that I have my own choice of genre. And what I did is I went through the table of contents, and I said, what are some of the narrative genres that we're looking at this particular unit? And so some examples are poetry, memoir, autobiography, an essay, a graphic novel. So kids have a choice here, right? And then that it's going to be around an element of culture or a cultural perspective, right? Now we're going to take a look at the rubric, and I've already started to mark the rubric up just in terms of time. But what you'll find with the SpringBoard rubrics is they are very similar to the Smarter Balanced Assessment rubrics. They follow a 4-point scale where a 1 is incomplete and a 4 is exemplary, and they always use the same 3 categories. So it's always going to be broken down by idea, structure, and use of language. Now, when we unpack a rubric with students, this is like, if you remember one thing about these rubrics, this is the thing to remember. You unpack at proficient, because the proficient is aligned to grade level standards. Okay. Now, you may unpack it in exemplary if you have an advanced class. if you're teaching like a plus class, like English 9 plus, then you might want to unpack here, but proficient is grade level. Okay. And what I've done is I've started to go through and just annotate the important elements of the scoring guide. So my students need to describe the incident, they need to orient the reader, use narrative techniques, develop their characters, develop the experiences, have a conclusion, clear one, right? They follow the structure of the genre that they choose. So that might look a little bit different if I chose poetry over graphic novels, right? There needs to be a sequence of events with transitions and a consistent point of view. And then they need to use descriptive language and telling details. I might reword that as sensory details for my students, direct and indirect dialogue, and demonstrate a general command of conventions and spellings. And so what I've done for a little visual here is I have taken all of those elements and unpacked them in a web. So I have my task here in the middle, and these are all of the different things that I'm going to need to learn or demonstrate mastery of in order to complete the assessment, right? And so in a typical SpringBoard classroom, you would take this unpacked embedded assessment and you would post it up so that it is visually accessible for all students. And it's something that they can refer back to. Now, it's going to be a little bit different this semester, right? So a couple of different opportunities. I particularly like unpacking via a web, but that's not everybody's cup of tea, and there's really no wrong or no right way. The focus is really what you guys were saying. Students need to have a better understanding of the assessment and how they're going to be held accountable for showing what they know. And if we just have them read the rubric, oftentimes they're not engaging with it in a deeper, meaningful way. So it's how do you have kids process the rubric and understand what expectations they're going to be held to? So I have seen a couple of digital examples where people have unpacked embedded assessments in like a Google slide and posted that to their Google Classroom so that students have access throughout a unit. I've seen folks do a very low-tech way like me, unpack it hard copy and take a picture and post that up in a Google Classroom or put that up in a header of a document so that students have access. But the purpose of the activity
We lost your voice.
Am I back?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Woo! My phone hung up on me. It was tired of listening to me, I guess. So again, the whole purpose of unpacking the embedded assessment is really understanding how you're going to be held accountable. And you'll find in all of the teacher guides and in the planning and all of the materials for SpringBoard, this is the first activity they have students do with every unit. Very first thing. So right off the bat, before the learning and how you're going to be held accountable isn't like a surprise or a gotcha at the end. Students know right up at the beginning what they're going to be doing and how they're going to be held accountable. Yeah, you're good here. You're good here, Krista. I share this with you first before we dive into the digital components, before we talk about how on earth are we going to do the pacing and make modifications and all the things for this upcoming like semester blocked class. Because if you know the embedded assessment that you're using and you know the elements that you're going to hold kids accountable for, you can start to figure out what you're going to cut, right? Like in this instance, for example, if I know I'm holding my kids accountable for direct and indirect dialogue, like I probably don't want to cut the lesson on dialogue, right? Maybe I want to modify it or make it smaller or make it quicker or make it something that's asynchronous, but I want to make sure that with whatever embedded assessments I'm using with my students, I'm providing the appropriate support during those synchronous and asynchronous lessons. And so that's why I start with these kind of planning the unit, understanding the embedded assessment, because then it's going to help you make decisions that will positively impact students and their experience throughout the semester, right? It's like if you're driving to an unknown destination and you start modifying your map, right? You're like, I'm going to turn left because, you know, that looks like it's going to be faster, but you don't know what your end destination is. You might be setting yourself up for like a 6-hour road trip rather than the, you know, shortest destination from point A to point B. So that's one example of the embedded assessments. I wanted to show you what the second one looked like. I haven't unpacked this, but in the second half of this unit, students are developing an argument about an issue that resonates across cultures. They're choosing a position, a target audience, and the genre to convey their arguments. And then I wanted to highlight that the rubric is organized the same. So you've got your 1, 2, 3, 4-point rubric across ideas, structure, and use of language. So it is cyclical. Students see a similar structure from task to task, and these rubrics do very closely align with the Smarter Balance rubrics. If you've got 7th, 8th, and 11th graders who at this point in the year will be taking that Smarter Balance test in spring. So there are some strong connections there. With that, I am going to magically swap back to my other slides. Fingers crossed. I have to stop presenting that window and then present that tab. I think I did it. Marilyn, you're the only person I can see. Do you see my slide? Yep, okay, woohoo. All right, so we've gotten the big picture of the unit. We've unpacked the embedded assessments, and the next piece is to look at the instructional sequence. And that's looking at all the learning targets of all the activities within the unit, and how do you correlate those to the focus standards and to the embedded assessments. And I have a cool resource to show you, okay? So over the last couple of years, here's what we've created in district. On your slideshow, this is actually a link. This will take you to this document. But we've taken all of the learning targets for all of the activities in all of the units and put them in a continuum for you. So for example, this is unit 2. These are all of the different learning targets that build up to that narrative. So you can see at a glance how the targets build, and I said, so I know like activity 2.4, there are narrative techniques and they're using direct and indirect dialogue. So this is a good place to kind of come and figure out navigating through units without having to flip, every page to get to your learning target. You have them all in one spot ready to go. So we've done our big picture. We've unpacked our embedded assessment. We can read over the learning targets, and then we own the activity. We plan daily instruction. We modify and make strategic adjustments in the process, the content, and the product. We do this in a regular year. We do this in like a non-pandemic, everybody's at school for the whole school year and classes look regular. You still modify. It's still a part of the process, but I really just want to honor that before you make heavy sweeping modifications, you've got to know what you're modifying, right? So I think it's a fantastic use of your time, and I'm going to give you some time later in the session to know and go through this process for all of your units, to really get a big picture of what that year looks like, to then say to yourself, hey, there's 3 units that have an argumentative text. I probably only need to do 1 in this weird semester block, right? But really understand the whole story of the units before making those big sweeping changes. but this is kind of your, maybe not your 10,000 foot view, but like your 5,000 foot view of how these SpringBoard units are developed. They're developed with the end in mind. I mean, you hear that all the time. It is an educational buzz phrase of sorts, but we've got to know where we're going before we leave, right? And really getting the flow there. And that's our section on understanding the unit planning process and understanding, unpacking the embedded assessments. So I'm going to go ahead and take a quick pause before I dive into SpringBoard Digital, and I want to open it up to any questions folks may have in regards to that bird's eye view, unit planning process, unpacking embedded assessments, before we dive into the digital resources, the tools you have available, and like getting you into the system. Are all resources online? Yes. Yes. Even in a regular year, this is both hard copy and digital. Will students have online access to their textbooks? Yes. And there's some fantastic updates to SpringBoard Digital that you guys are going to be the first to see, because even the other SpringBoard teachers haven't seen them yet if they haven't logged in. Pretty cool. And here's, I guess you didn't ask this, but I'll answer it too, Mickey. I believe students will also have their hard copy books. They're working on pickups for students for the hard copy books, what I just showed you here. These are for students. They're consumable. Kids can write in them. They can mark them up. They match the digital text. I have some folks who, again, in a regular year, have kids mark up the book and then take a picture and submit their annotations. So if you want to go low tech, that's an option, or they can annotate online, high tech, but they should have access to both. Do I know if the dictionary function is working? I believe so, Elizabeth. There's been an entire overhaul of SpringBoard Digital. It's beautiful. Beautiful. I'm going to do a better job at my wait time and then move into digital. Okay. So for SpringBoard Digital, this is going to be like our little micro agenda here. Okay. We're going to take a look at the new updated platform. I'm going to get you logged in. Let's start there. We're going to go through the ebook experience. I want to show you the updates to the ebook. Melissa, yes, Google Classroom. SpringBoard is now integrated with Google Classroom. That is new as of like 2 weeks ago. It's pretty cool. We'll talk about the digital partners and do a digital Q&A. And so you do have access to these slides, and up in the top corner, I've placed login instructions. I'm going to share that screen as well, because if you've done any other trainings over the last couple of days, logging in is super fun right now. So here's what I'd like you to do. I have them posted. You can follow it as well. You're going to go through and follow these first 4 steps, and either one of 2 things are going to happen. Either you're going to log in and it's going to say, hooray, you're in, or you're going to log in and it's going to say, uh-oh, it didn't work. And then I have a fix for you if it didn't work. I had a couple of you in my session yesterday. There are quite a few hiccups right now with Clever, knowing that some master schedules are in Synergy and some master schedules are not. And that just makes single sign-on super fun right now for everyone. So you can navigate to the staff portal. You can scroll down and click on the SpringBoard ELA textbook, log in with Clever. You log in with your general email. If it works, you get the first screen. If not, you get the uh-oh. If you get the uh-oh, go ahead and scroll down to the second page, and I've got access to a demo account for you. Okay, so either you get in or you hit the uh-oh. If you hit the uh-oh, go to the second page of instructions. And because we have a small amount of people in this particular session, if you could just in the chat send an I'm in when you're in, that would be really helpful for me in terms of pacing. And when you're in, you'll be in something like this. Because then I can just keep track of who's in and who is not in.
Katie, if I'm in uh-oh, then what am I doing?
So the second page of those instructions, what you're going to do is you're going to go to the staff portal, you're going to click on the SpringBoard link, and instead of logging in with Clever, there is a teeny little link at the bottom that says, if you're an instructional coach, click here. I'm going to have you click here and use this username and password. So David, you could do the same thing as well. We're just bypassing Clever if Clever isn't working. If it didn't load correctly, Melissa, I'm going to have you try the, oh, what's happening? Melissa or Maria, could you tell me what it is that you're seeing?
I see the same thing that you just showed, and it has my name at the top. It says Melissa Bowen, but instead of it saying like ELA 10 or 9 or something like that, it just says this page didn't load correctly. Okay.
If it's not loading, can I have you log out and follow the instructions for the demo account for the sake of right now? And
Sure.
I'll follow up on that.
Sure.
Now there's yard work next door. I hope it's not loud. I'm sorry. Okay, I have almost half of you in. Hi, Sophia. Okay, I'm gonna wait another minute or so, see if I got folks in. I think I have about half of you. Again, if the Clever account doesn't work, you should use the demo account, and that should get you in, at least for the sake of today. And then the Clever accounts will work once the schedules are input into Synergy, and Synergy is synced with Clever, and Clever is synced with SpringBoard, and then you'll have access. Doesn't that sound like fun? Marilyn shaking her head no. No, it is not fun. While I'm getting folks logged in, let me talk to you a little bit about the Clever sync. That's cool. So all of your kids will be automatically populated into SpringBoard. You won't have to create accounts for them. They don't have they don't have to remember a separate password. They don't have to remember a separate account. It is all via the single sign-on. So we are waiting on school schedules to get finished, and that's kind of our hinge point right now. But once the schedules are in, the Clever access will be up and rolling. Mickey, if you can't get in via Clever, follow the second page of instructions for the demo. I'm going to wait probably another minute, and then I'm going to go through and start doing some of the demo on my screen. So if at that point you're still having issues logging in, I'm going to suggest that you follow along with me on my screen, and then we'll troubleshoot and get you in a little bit for the sake of time. Okay. So I do have, it looks like I do have a couple of teachers who have been past SpringBoard teachers who are with me today. You may find that this screen looks very different. There has been a restructure of the SpringBoard digital dashboard and accounts, and it looks a little bit different. I think it's much more user-friendly. and I want to walk you through a couple of different elements. So I want to start with kind of a big at a glance look at the SpringBoard digital platform, and then we'll dive specifically into the ebook itself. But I've got a list of things, and I want to make sure I hit them all. So a couple things right off the top. If there are any updates, you will see them up at the top of your screen in yellow. So you can see there's been a new California update that I could tab up there. In the next row of content, I have my name, my teacher account. I can log out or check my account. I have a little drop-down caret right here to select my different classes. So when Clever does the sync, you'll see all of your classes there by default. And the SpringBoard button right here is basically the home button. No matter what screen you're on, if you click on SpringBoard, it'll bring you back to the home page. Now, at the top of my page, this next blue header, I have the ability to toggle between different grade levels of textbook. So I have assigned all 5 grade levels to my class. So I could toggle between 7th grade and 10th grade and 9th grade, but that's how you change your grade book up there, or your book up there. And then in the white header, we've got all of our fun things. So we have the ebook, which we're going to dive into in just a second. We have our teacher resources, internal server. What is happening? I tested this all before we met, so that better work. Story of my life, guys. Story of my life. Roofing, yard work, and links that don't work. So let's see if the assessments work. Quick. I think it's loading. I was already logged in, but I'll log in again. That's what it takes. Maybe it's like my phone, it hung up on me. All right, let's try again. Yay! Okay, so the teacher resources tab is super cool. It's going to take a minute to load because what it is loading is 299 teacher resources. Everything is there. So in the teacher resources tab, I have access from everything to PDF versions of the book. So I've got some book PDFs here in both teacher and student view. I have access, let me scroll past the book PDF. There's a lot of book PDFs, okay? I have access to close reading workshops, and some of these are informational or argumentative, poetry, Shakespeare, there's science and social studies examples as well. I've got a cognate dictionary. That's something I've got access to, as well as some ELD materials if I found the need to supplement with some ELD materials for my students. I have family engagement letters. SpringBoard puts together these letters in both English and Spanish for each unit of instruction that can be sent out to the community and to your students' families. I've got foundational skills workshops, grammar handbooks, all sorts of graphic organizers. And down at the bottom, I should have some writing workshops. Basically, any resource you could possibly want for your grade level is under teacher resource. And this is what I want to show you. How cool is this? Let's say I would like to share with my students these TPcast graphic organizers. Look at this. I could download it as a PDF, or I could just straight assign it to the class and it'll push to their Google Classroom. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. So teacher resources, you could spend an hour just perusing. One thing I do want to point out, if you're in teacher resources and you're like, hey, I don't teach grade 10, you got to come back up to your blue bar and change your class, and the resources will refresh for each class. But it's pretty cool because maybe you find like, maybe you teach 10th grade and you wanted to pull an activity from the 9th grade book last year because students missed it in quarter 4. This is the way to do it. Like, you can pull in the teacher resources. The assessment tab is new as well. or there's been some updates to the assessment tab. And what you'll see is the assessments for that whole grade level. Again, I'm still in grade 10, but SpringBoard has two different types of assessments. They have what are called end of unit, and then they have what are called short cycle or activity specific. So you could see like right here, I have a unit 1 assessment, and down here I have a unit 1 activity 1.3 to 1.4, right? So you can choose to give students a small assessment or a big assessment. They are tech enhanced, meaning right here, see I just boop, right to Google Classroom, boop, you could just assign it. They're super cool in that it's loading, right? It's got all my standards aligned. This particular one is 7 questions, and they will like self-score, right? It'll score itself. They'll be specifically about the activity that students just did. So pre-written assessment questions that you can push out to your kids and review the metadata. And when you create the assessment, you determine if it's classwork or homework or all those different settings in your Google Classroom. I'll give you an example there, but we had access to the assessments before, but you couldn't push them out via Google Classroom, and not many people used them. But the fact that they're connected, right, and they'll talk to each other, beautiful, beautiful. Kelly, are students able to write on the graphic organizers? Those particular ones are PDFs, so those would be print only, or like Michelle said, you could use something like DocHub where they can write in them. I also saw, this is a little bird walk, but I also saw someone take a PDF and load it into a Google slide as the background, and then kids could add text boxes over, or the teacher could add text boxes over where you wanted students to write. So that's an option too. Maria, can we modify work and upload to Google Classroom? Yes. And I'm going to show you that with the ebook. Okay. So we took a look at teacher resources, assessments, progress reports are reports on those assessments. If you wanted to, let's say I've assigned assessments to students throughout the semester, I could run a report to see like, how have they done in all this? This is like an auto-generated report builder. Marilyn, yes, you could use Cami. Other thing I want to point out to you is the professional learning tab. Mine's going to look a little bit different than yours. There is a tab for e-learning, and so SpringBoard has put together some e-learning sessions. So you've got like SpringBoard ELA here, and there's some pretty cool pre-built modules. We've taken a look at the big picture, but if you wanted to get some ELD specific instruction, or you wanted to dive into a workshop, like a close reading or a writing workshop, these are some great resources that are already built into SpringBoard Digital that don't require like scheduling a meeting with me or finding time to meet. Like if you're just like, hey, I want to know more about the writing workshops, it's a good place to go. And then the last tab is class roster, and mine's not going to look like yours right now, but when I have kids or you have kids, you'll see them in your class roster. We don't have to add or modify the kids in our sections because it is done via Clever. So if a student's added to your class or removed from your class, that'll be done for you. Probably the only thing to point out in class roster is where you assign product to your students. So if you want them to have access to grade 9 in the class roster, that's where you give them access. And I'll be sending out some specific information and resources for those of you that need like a step-by-step video, or if you're looking for pictures, that class access is where they get those resources. So you won't see the instructional coach access because you're a teacher and you'll have students, so we'll just disregard that for the time being. I want to show you, if I click on the SpringBoard button, it's going to loop me back to my front page. And with that, let's talk about the ebook. Yay, updates to the ebook. The ebook automatically will take you back to whatever page you were most recently on. Same thing for students. So you could tell your kids, open up your ebook and go to activity 2.2, or you could assign the activity to them. They can get to it both ways. But let's go ahead and view our ebook. And again, if you were a SpringBoard teacher previously and you have used the tiled version, you're going to see quite a few updates just in this ebook component in terms of how you send work to students and how you collect work. We're just waiting for it to load. Maybe I'll close my other tab. Maybe that will help. The request has timed out. Maybe I have to log back in because I was in another tab. This is the theme of 2020. Yeah. Log in, log out. Log in, log out. Yep. Yep, if it's happening to me, it'll happen to everyone. I think because I had a second tab I was logged into. I don't know. Here we go. We're back. View the ebook. Look, once you're logged in, that works perfect. Okay. All right. So I want to show you up at the top, your header stays the same. All these resources stay the same. What's different, you see a share to Google Classroom here. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But I want to show you the tools over here in the left-hand side of your toolbar. The first one you'll see is your table of contents. You can navigate by page number, by unit. So if I have my book and I'm like, I need to go to page 392, it'll take you directly there, or navigate back and forth like this. I went into one of the activities from the unit that we were taking a look at together. But you can see there's all sorts of resources there. Underneath the table of contents, it kind of looks like a map. That's going to be your teacher wrap that has all the like teacher directions and information about like scaffolding, and there are some great scaffolded text-dependent questions. So a lot of times within the text-dependent questions of SpringBoard, you're going to find scaffolded questions that are maybe more appropriate for English learners or students with disabilities. And so that's where you can dive right in. To kind of piggyback off of what Maria had asked, I can actually edit my teacher wrap. Students do not see the teacher wrap unless you're projecting it. It's got all the answers in it. Okay, so we've got our teacher wrap there. Underneath the teacher wrap, you've got your standard correlations. I didn't search for any up there. Underneath the standard correlations, I think I have to filter, like I can search for topics, like I need to turn the filtering off, I think. Let me go to my standard search. The search bar, this is what I was looking for. So like, let's say, let's go back to that embedded assessment. We were teaching dialogue, right? Whoa, what did I do? Hold on a sec. I spelled that wrong. So within this particular activity, it's not finding any items about dialogue. But if I zoom out to the unit, I can search for specific standards and search for specific text within the unit, and it'll pull up all the instances where it's at. And then the last thing we have is what's called the class copy. So you can see right here with this yellow piece, right now I'm in what's called my class copy. It's period 1. This is period 1's book. So if I wanted to go through and maybe annotate or provide an example in the period 1 book, my students will see it. Or maybe I want to like dive in and actually look at someone else's book. I want to see like, how is student 1, it'll have their name. How is student 1 annotating? I can dive in and look at their books but this little address book is how you swap between your view as the teacher and students' views. Michelle, let me answer your question. So now I have my book. I want you to see I've got learning targets. I've got the strategies. Yes, Marilyn, students can see both the class book and their own book. I have a text here. My text has audio built into it. I've been told in the next update, in I think it's the next week, this audio is actually going to dock down here at the bottom of the screen. So when you scroll, the audio stays the same. And then you'll see, because this is my teacher's edition, there's answers. I see the answers. Maybe I don't want my kids to see those answers though. So in settings or preferences, I can turn my annotations on and off. I can turn the teacher answers off. I can turn correlations on, and I can turn projector mode on and off. All that does is make everything like a little bit bigger and a little bit bolder. That's nice if you're projecting, but that's how you can turn those answers on and off. But this is what I want to show you. Within the text, there are built-in annotation tools, and they have been updated. So I can mark the text with any of these metacognitive markers, like circling or underlining or adding a comment. I can also highlight. I can add a sticky note. I should be able to add a sticky note. I should be able to define these automatically saved for students, Michelle, and there have been updates. So if a student like click, then it just keeps saving. Yes, Marilyn, answers on in the class book would show students the answers, I believe. Let me find. I'm pretty sure as long as your answers are on. And then I think someone asked earlier about the dictionary and the dictionary for any word in the book. You can just double click it and click on the dictionary tool. So same thing as a teacher, I can go through and do all these annotations and they'll automatically save for students. Students can go through the annotations and I can go ahead and look at them. Probably the biggest and fanciest of all updates is the share to Google Classroom. And I want to take a minute to highlight that because you just click on share to Google Classroom and it pops up your window for Google Classroom. This is the beautiful piece. I can choose to share the whole page or I can choose to share a specific section. I don't have to send all of activity 2.2. I could just send a second read question. And that goes directly into my Google Classroom. Again, I don't have kids in my Google Classroom, but I could choose my class. And then I can choose, is it an assignment? Is it a question? Is it material? And then all the settings in Google Classroom about how many points it is and the due dates and all of the things within Google. So that is probably the biggest and fanciest of all updates for SpringBoard. And I think I stopped sharing my screen. That was by accident. I'm sorry. Go back here. That share to Google Classroom. So you can share PDFs, you can share parts of the activity, you can share all of the things. And I'm going to send everyone at the end of this session. I think it's on the slides. I have video instructions on how teachers assign and grade things on Google Classroom, as well as how students access and then do the things on Google Classroom. So there's some built-in resources for you there. So that's the headers, all of your resources here. That's your ebook And the other component that we have access to are the partners. So we've dove into Google Classroom already. I do want to take a minute to highlight Zinc as a really great resource, and then talk a little bit about the revision assistant. So Zinc is going to be tied directly to your student SpringBoard logins. Zinc is a separate company with a separate product based on reading, vocabulary, close reading skills, content skills, and they have aligned many of their material offerings with SpringBoard. And so SpringBoard has an outside partnership with them. This is something you may choose to use or you may not use. It's just a supplemental resource that your kids have access to. But within Zinc, they have the ability to do vocabulary sets and vocabulary, games and skill builders that are tied to units and topics of instruction. Students can do close reading of articles and text. And just to highlight some of them and how they're organized, again, you can search literally by SpringBoard grade level and unit, or you could just search through them in general. So just for example, content, SpringBoard, and then I can just select my unit. Let's go into that. Grade 10, Unit 2. So I've got a ton of articles that are thematically aligned. If you're looking for something, it gives you an idea of read time, of difficulty, and the skills that are focused in on the articles. There's also things like comparison quizzes where students can read 2 articles and do a compare contrast of the articles and have a little mini assessment that is scored for you, which is pretty cool. And that one's new. Zinc also has some close reading practice, and these were new in the last year, especially during the school closures. But these have some really cool reading passages where a student, I'm trying to think the best way to explain it. Basically, students will see a text. Let's just look at it.
You're reading a book or an article.
So students will see a text here, and in this text, they're going to have a student, so the video is going to come up here, and they're going to have a text, and they're going to have a student walk them through close reading the text. It's super powerful in that they're not listening to their teacher tell them, like, hey, what are the sensory details in this paragraph? But it's a student their own age kind of walking them through different resources that they see. And I don't know, can you guys hear the audio when I play it?
Article. Maybe it's your homework. Maybe you're taking a reading test, and suddenly you're like that cartoon character that ran off the cliff. Whoops, I have no idea what I just read. Zinc Close Reading is about what to do when you're reading, so you can understand everything, especially with harder texts. Will practicing these skills make you love reading harder texts? Maybe, but you'll for sure understand them and succeed. Your main job
I'm trying to get to the example.
Is zinking. What is zinking? A page.
So you'll get a little video from a student, you'll get a task that you do with them. And the close reading sprints from Zinc typically are, I think they're 3 to 6 weeks. So you can assign a 6-week sprint and it'll match a kid where their level is at and give them close reading skills as they move through the unit of instruction. So if you're looking for some asynchronous targeted support for students during the next semester, Zinc may be one good place for that. There's great texts that are literary based. There are tons of informational texts. It can be aligned to the unit, or it may not be aligned to the unit. Maybe you have students pick things. Does it go all the way down to 2nd grade? I'm not sure what grade level it goes all the way down to, Maria, but I do know Let me show you the Lexile band. Let's see.
I don't know that.
My echo is talking to me. I'm sorry. I thought I muted that. So let's see here. I didn't have it up and ready, Maria, but let me get it to you. I thought I have it. I know I have it. I know I have it. Because Zinc does the placement test and the articles go across, I believe, 5 Lexile bands. So let's look here. There we go. So level 1 goes down to a 4th and a 5th grade band, and level 7 is 1350 Lexile and above. So, we could spend all day in Zinc. Zinc is like a whole separate program with tons of great resources. I really wanted to highlight that, like, you have access to it. Your kids have access. There's no separate login. There's no separate anything. And it's aligned to prove you have it. It's some really great asynchronous stuff. The next thing I want to point out is Revision Assistant, and it's not going to let me access it because I don't have kids in my class, I don't think. But it is going to give me some resources regarding Revision Assistant, and Revision Assistant is a Turnitin or a product developed collaboratively between Turnitin and SpringBoard, and with some of the embedded assessments, like the argumentative text that we took a look at in our 10th grade unit, students can upload their essay, and Turnitin will provide feedback based on the rubric. Right? So it's got a computer AI component built in that might say, like, add more effective transitions because no transitions were found, something like that. But it's not going to let me get into the demo because I don't have students in my account right now, and I don't have access to an account that has students in it until the schedules are done. But another fabulous resource built in as a partner with SpringBoard. So we've got our new SpringBoard digital platform. We've got the new and updated ebook. We've got partners where you can push out and use Google Classroom, which is like heaven sent. I think it's phenomenal. The Revision Assistant, Michelle, is not the Turnitin plagiarism checker. It's a separate tool. And so we could spend, like I said, more time in SpringBoard Digital. We could spend more time in Zinc. But what I would like to do is share with you some resources and then open it up for Q&A to make sure that I get your questions answered. So back to the slides, I went ahead and I directly linked some resources for you that I think are a good place to start from. So SpringBoard has an official support page, as well as a super in-depth teacher user guide that will give you like step-by-step picture instructions for almost anything you want to do. They've also created Google Classroom tutorials for how the teacher assigns, how students do work, and how teachers review the student work. I've also directly linked the Zinc support page. Marilyn, would I use Zinc and Mayan? Yeah, probably. I would probably use Zinc for more targeted close reading skills and Mayan for independent reading. Sorry, I just answered that because I got excited. And then via Salinas Union High School District, in terms of resources, we do have an English Language Arts resource website. That's something that I manage. We've gone through with our curriculum teams and we've identified some of the essential standards for Unit 1 in all of the grade levels. You have me available for one-to-one coaching. I'll also be offering professional development sessions throughout the school year. And it looks like in kind of the week right before school starts. And then as Marilyn kind of pointed out in the chat, we do have access to something called Myon, which is a great resource for independent reading, or if you were to do something like Lit Circle in your class. What I'd like to do is open it up for questions that are not specific to how would I pace this in a semester, because I have some things that I would share specifically for that. But do you have any questions regarding navigation or how you access or how SpringBoard Digital is set up? Something a little more broader, like we questions. If you've got like something very me oriented, I can do my best to answer it whole group, but I might ask that we do a follow-up after the session today. And then if it looks like everything's sitting pretty good, then we will shift to what the heck are we going to do this semester? Can we add a co-teacher to classes? The official word I heard from SpringBoard is yes, as long as it's set up on our end in Synergy. So if it's set up in Synergy and it's set up in Google Classroom, then it should be set up in SpringBoard Digital. It is possible now with the new integration.
This is probably completely impractical, but I'm just wondering if I'm going to be sending things to students. I see there's a link to student experience, but is there a way to have a pretend student so that I can really truly understand the student experience?
Do you, Marilyn, in your SpringBoard Digital, do you have access to your own account via Clever right now?
I do, yes.
So when you are in SpringBoard Digital and you see your drop down up here with classes, do you see something that says sample or demo class?
Let's see. I do. Sample class.
So if you were to click into your sample class,
yes,
or go to your class roster for your sample class,
okay, I'm there.
You can add. You should be able to add. You should be able to add a demo student. I'll pull the instructions for how to do that through the SpringBoard Digital content team.
That would be great. I really appreciate that. I don't currently see how to, it switched me. When I went to my demo class, it's populating my real students. Oh wait,
okay.
Sample class. But yes, if you can direct me to that I would really appreciate that. Thank you, Katie.
If I can't get it to work inside of your teacher account, I can definitely get it to work inside of a demo account, like that login I shared with everyone. So if I can't get it here, I will get you access in a demo account so that you can toggle between the students and teacher view.
Amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. I teach at Carr Lake and I teach grades 7 through 12. And some of this is like way off for my students. And sometimes half of my class is on an IEP. So do you have resources specific? And then my students are coming in and out as they're being expelled. So do you have any resources specifically for that?
I think in that instance, probably one place that I would really suggest is in the teacher resources, and it's the reading and writing workshops, because those are going to be, they're not going to be like quarter-long units. They're built around like 4 or 5 activities, and they're a little bit more standalone. But I can see, and I did a little bit of work at El Puente last year, but I could see taking a writing workshop or a reading workshop in one particular genre, but using multiple grade levels of materials so that you could do some whole group instruction, but then students would have grade level materials. I think that would be one way to approach a mixed level class.
Thank you so much. I might have to email you
Yes,
later.
yes, please do. Okay. Should we talk about this semester? Yep, let's talk about this semester. Okay, so I'm going to preface some of this discussion with a lot of what I'm sharing is what Katie thinks or what Katie supports, but not necessarily like what Ed Services thinks or what the district thinks. This isn't like district level information, but it's like professionally from my position and the work that I do and how I know this curriculum, how I would approach it. Just little disclaimer. Okay. So I've spent a good chunk of time in the last couple of weeks diving into this new distance learning playbook that was published by Doug Fisher, Nancy Fry, and John Hattie. It's been an excellent read. I don't have a hard copy I can hold up and show you because I bought the digital copy because the hard copy would take too long to get here. But one of the resources, at least for the day-to-day planning that they provided, was a distance learning lesson plan framework that really helped me see a good flow between giving students targeted goals and moving between like a launch and collaborative work and coaching with students and deliberate practice and having some sort of a performance piece. And I did put a little link up here for you. It is a PDF. It's what they provided as a resource. So, I mean, edit, modify, and change if you're looking for something that you can type into. But I just want to share that this particular body of research and this particular book has been really eye-opening and empowering for me the last couple of weeks. If you're unfamiliar with Fisher, Fry, and Hattie, they've all done incredible work, especially John Hattie, and they had the opportunity to go in during Q4 and study and do a little mini research of, I think it's 87 teachers who were doing distance learning during the pandemic. And so there's some really cool hard data around like what works and what doesn't and how recommendations are different from, grades 3 to grades 10. And I highly recommend this if you're looking for a resource that has like it's research backed and it's written by someone that you trust and that holds themselves in this academic community. It's something that I would highly recommend, but that work and that reading has impacted some of my suggestions for what to do for this upcoming semester. That's my little intro piece. So at the very beginning of the semester, we had curriculum teams meet and we were directed to not address pacing for a new schedule. And at that point in the summer, it was not decided that there was going to be a 3x3 block schedule for the upcoming school year. And to just add, I found out about it when you guys found out about it. So there has been quite a few PLCs and teams who have already started meeting and already started creating their plans for the upcoming semester. And so there has not yet been an opportunity to put together district level pacing for 6+ courses at each grade level for the upcoming modified school year or changed school year. So I do have quite a few people asking me like, where's the pacing guide? And there's not a team to meet and do the pacing guide is kind of where we're at right now. And so many PLCs have been meeting and have started collaborating around their essential standards and really laying out what their school year is going to look like and doing some really great work. So it's about figuring out at the district level, how do we balance and acknowledge that great work that's already been happening this summer by also looking at like what are going to be some non-negotiables and how do we support it at the district level. I do know we have an upcoming steering committee right at the very beginning of the school year where some of these discussions are going to happen at the district level. I do know that district assessments are still happening. So in terms of accountability, that lens or that piece is still existing. So it's not supposed to be a free for all, right? But if you're asking where's the pacing, this is why I don't have one. But what would Katie do? What would Katie do? Right? That's because someone's like, okay, you don't have a pacing, but what would Katie do? Here's what Katie would do. Right? So in diving into these 5 years of curriculum, like 7th through 11th grade, and knowing the story of these units, in my mind, each grade level has a non-negotiable portfolio for the term. And that is some sort of narrative piece, an expository piece, an argumentative piece. These are all writing pieces, as well as a full-length text. Okay. In my mind, that's non-negotiable for each grade level of English language arts. Now, what I would do with that information is I would look at the SpringBoard units as half units, right? So for example, we looked at that 10th grade unit 2, and the first half was narrative and the second half was argumentative. I think we have to, given the circumstances, look at these units as half units and identify which of those half units best support these non-negotiable products, okay? And then I would use those units as foundational material for the course. So for example, maybe I'd use the second half of the 10th grade unit 2 as my argumentative unit. I'm gonna have to supplement, because if I'm not doing the first half of the unit, I'm missing out on content that is gonna drive that argumentative paper. But you can't do all 4 units. It ain't gonna, we don't do all 4 units in a regular school year. The pacing on this curriculum, like Teresa, is pretty intense. So we can't do all 4. So we have to be really, really intentional about the units that we do and the foundational pieces. And so in my mind, we identify those non-negotiables, and then we identify units that support them. You've got supplemental resources within the reading and writing materials, supplemental resources within Zinc, supplemental resources within Mayan. In my head, you've got the 19 weeks for the semester, and that comes out, if you take off some weeks at the beginning of the year because you've got to get to know your students and find a routine and figure things out, and kick off some weeks towards the end or in the middle for any assessments, and that leaves you with about 5 to 6 weeks for each writing genre, right? And that's kind of how I would organize myself and organize my team in how we move through the units. Now, that full-length text piece is a place where I think we have some flexibility. So this is how I would imagine a weekly schedule to work based on what we've seen through our school board. I would use in my classroom on Mondays for asynchronous work, work done with the full-length text. So I think that could be done with the core text for each grade level. So I think that could be done with your To Kill a Mockingbird. That could be done with your Their Eyes Are Watching God. But I think it could also be done with lit circles. So I think students could identify a full-length text and use it as a novel study throughout the semester. I think you could do that via lit circles where students are reading, a selection of, they choose one of 8 books that's available in one of our digital libraries, and they have a group to meet with and the group to work through the novel with throughout the semester. And in terms of instructions, I would change the task and change the focus that students are working on throughout the semester every 2 or so weeks. And then I would leave my Tuesday through Friday courses where I'm meeting with students and having synchronous work and having my office hours to be specifically unit instruction. So in this type of a schedule, my full-length text here on Monday would live almost the whole semester, and these 5 to 6 week units for the writing genres would be implemented through those Tuesday through Friday instructional days. That's what Katie would do. So that's kind of how I've wrapped my head around distance learning, and how do you take something that is like recursive and rich and relies on a lot of in-class instruction and make it work for digital instruction. And so I think it's all about those non-negotiables. I think it's about looking at the SpringBoard units as half units and organizing your year around the non-negotiable products. So I would urge you, if you haven't met with your PLCs already, to meet with them. And I mean, I would start right here in the non-negotiable. If you're meeting with your PLC, I think you got to start with the big picture, and you have to make sure, like, what are we saying is essential that all of our students will be able to do by the end of this term, and how is that going to be product driven, and then how can we backwards map that into our school year. So that's what would Katie do, or what did Krista say? WWKD. Maybe I'll have bracelets. I don't know. But that's what Katie would do.
I have
in terms of instruction.
If that's okay. Yeah. So when you say look at the SpringBoard units as half units, can you clarify that? Because I'm just thinking going into 9th grade, having what's the story unit with Tim Burton? So the first half is the O. Henry and Edgar Allan Poe, like short story narrative writing. And then the second half of it is the Tim Burton film analysis, which is expository, explanatory writing. So can you help me understand what you mean when you say look at them as half units?
So when I say look at them as half units, that's a good example of a unit that really relies, right? Like both halves really affect how the unit progresses, right? Yeah. But that expository piece at the beginning, when they're doing the definition of style, you could do an expository piece elsewhere, right? So maybe what that means, Krista, is in distance learning, 9th grade doesn't do unit 2.
Okay.
Right? Or maybe that means, because you have a style analysis essay for the Tim Burton films, but you could also do a style analysis piece with your full-length text, right? I think given the decrease, you can't do them both.
Yeah, because that's what To Kill a Mockingbird's essay really is. It's looking at, once they've learned to do style analysis with film, it's transferring those skills into a style analysis with literature. And so they're repetitive, right? It's the same exact essay. It's just one's with film, one's with lit.
Yep. So I think as a PLC, you got to make a choice, right? Like in a perfect world, like that's great because they get to practice and because they get to do it more than once. But we have 19 weeks.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Like that's what I mean by half units.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious because I'm wondering, I'm sure other SpringBoard units are like this. So I'm going to ask the question because maybe it feels like a me question, but I think it might also be an other people question. But because unit 2, the first half is narrative writing, and then the second half is expository writing, and then unit 3 is expository writing. With the research project, but then the expository writing, would it make sense to keep the narrative writing portion and then go on to Kill a Mockingbird? Because
I think
you're
so.
hitting both of those genres.
Yep.
And then within To Kill a Mockingbird, there are argumentative elements as well. Okay.
Yep. Yep, that's exactly it. Right. So it's just figuring out, you know, what that balance is, because we can't do it all.
Yeah.
Right. We can't do it all. So, yeah, it's looking really at each unit as, you know, two halves of one whole.
Yeah.
And how do we align those halves to make, you know, the best fitting product for students? And oh, it sucks. I hate cutting stuff. I mean, there's like, I hate cutting stuff, but we have to. There's only 4 days of instruction across 19 weeks. We have to. So to me, that's the best way to do it. What are your non-negotiables, and what are those products? And then how do you backwards map those through the pre-existing units? And then what are you going to add, change, modify, supplement within that unit to provide a good experience for your students?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That was all really good feedback. Thank you.
Good. Marilyn, I right now, I don't have any guidance on non-negotiables. I've asked that steering committees can meet and that can be done like ASAP. And the last thing I heard was that the actual contractual school year had to start before the steering committees could meet, which kind of sucks, but that's what the boss man told me.
I have a question. So yesterday I just found out that students aren't coming back until the 10th. Is the district or our schools going to be giving us any information about like when we're meeting, if we're having teacher work days? Because I haven't heard anything.
So I just found out this morning, so I don't know much ahead of you. So this is what I found out this morning, Michelle, and I guess for anybody, the student school year is starting on the 10th, which pushes back the staff contractual days to the 6th, which is going to allow for some optional, like paid EWA trainings the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And what I've heard most recently, and Lord, this could change because everything is changing. So I hope I don't regret saying it, but I'll just say it. The morning of the 3rd, 4th, and 5th is designated for school sites, and the afternoon of the 3rd, 4th, and 5th is designated for district PD. So, for example, you may meet with your site PLC in the morning on Monday, and then you might, you know, come hang out with me in the afternoon for, you know, diving deeper into SpringBoard Digital or using Myon as a resource or having a grade level, like I was throwing around this morning the possibility of like grade level team meetings. But again, I'm like, I found out maybe 15 minutes before the session today. So that's about all I know for transparency's sake.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I just can't believe they haven't told us that it starts on the 10th. Like I just happened to overhear it. Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Did you see my question about PBAs? Are those all canceled?
They're not all canceled, but they have to be modified because, so I said the district assessments will still happen, but there will be nothing that requires calibration and scoring. So older, you know, any of the past assessments that have required you to be pulled out to actually score, those have to be modified. Okay. And I have some folks working on that. Hopefully right now, but I don't know because I can't check in on them.
Okay, thank you.
Katie, this is Mickey. Are there going to be any trainings that will help us to manage the meetings themselves? Like, how do we do all of the stuff that you just did? How do we present slides in the meeting? You know, all the basic details of, because I've looked at some online tutorials, but they're not really, you know, set up for teachers. They're just for like, if you want to get together with your friends.
I don't know offhand, but that is definitely a recommendation I can make within Ed Services and the Ed Tech meetings.
Yeah, because we, you know, all this is great and it's incredibly helpful, but I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to, I mean, I can create a slide and a form and those kinds of things, but how do I show the children my slides and they can still see me like I can still see you, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I'll share with you my trick if this helps anybody. I have two windows open. I have one window with you guys over here, and I have one window with the presentation over here. And in the Google Meet, I have shared my tab so that I can see both of you. That's my hack. That's what I've discovered this summer. That's like my saving grace, because the first couple of things I did, I couldn't see anybody, and I felt like I was crazy. I was just sitting in here talking to myself.
That will probably, the two windows will certainly help us to practice. Because before we have real meetings, we need to be able to practice the meetings.
Yep. Oh yeah, I hear you. But I can definitely make that recommendation, Mickey.
Thanks so much.
So in terms of the back end of the session, I think we go until 12:15. Is that right? I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I think we go to 12:15. I wanted to designate time for you to click around, you to play around, you to ask questions. I do want to share with you the eval, so I'm going to leave that up for you. But my plan was for this last 25, 30 minutes is I'm here, I'm answering questions. If you just want to click around and explore and you are tired of listening to me talk, please mute me and just explore away and click around, take a look at Zinc, take a look at SpringBoard Digital. If you've got questions or you want to hear, you want to listen to the questions and answers, keep the volume on, but you could definitely mute me if you are tired of hearing me. I think I would be tired of hearing me, so I will not be offended by that choice. But I want to give you an opportunity to poke around and to ask questions. I do have something important to share with you. If you would like a hard copy textbook, they look a little bit different than these. They're bound in a binder. If you would like a hard copy textbook, please send me an email with your school site and grade level, because right now I have no access to master schedules, so I don't even know who's teaching what, so I can't send anything to anybody. But if you are like a hard copy person, shoot me an email, say, hey Katie, I need 9th grade, and I'll coordinate with the secretaries in our office to get those copies made and sent out to your school site. I think that's the way I have to do it. I don't think I can mail it to your house. But if you're looking for a hard copy, shoot me an email. That's a good everybody thing.
Katie, this is Scott. I was wondering if you could put the link to the document camera you're using in the chat.
Sure.
Thank
you. You have to give me a minute to pull it up, but I will do that.
Thank you.
I bought it on Amazon. I've had it for a little while, but it's been a good document camera. Let's see. At first glance, I think it's this one, Scott. It is like a teeny little, I'll Vanna White it for you. It is a teeny little, looks like a hair curler or something. It's very small. All it does is plug in via USB. That's the only cord it has. It's not the fanciest of resolutions, but it works. It travels well. I've used it for my professional development sessions over the last couple of years. But I think any sort of like a USB document camera would work if you're looking for something like that.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Katie, one quick question. You mentioned earlier about going into a specific place where I can just focus on 4 to 5. What was it? Lessons. Where exactly do I go to get that?
So you're going to want to go to the teacher resources, and then either scroll down and look at the close reading workshop or the writing workshop. And you change your grade level up here. So if I wanted to pull up like a 10th grade close reading workshop, I'm sorry for scrolling on your screen. Like here's a 10th grade informational 10th grade informational text reading workshop. It looks, well, I don't know how to share that because now it's a download.
And is that something that I can upload to Google Classroom?
Yep, you could even just straight assign it right within, you could either download it and upload it into Google Classroom or just click assign and assign it to your class, and it'll link through to Google Classroom.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. You are welcome. I'll also point out, I think maybe I missed that in terms of the book PDF. If you scroll down, we did not adopt SpringBoard ELD as our designated ELD curriculum, but because we're in the state of California, because we adopted one program, we still have access to the other. So there are book PDFs of our ELD materials. So if you find that you have a large number of English learners in your ELA class and you need to pull an activity or a resource out of the ELD materials, you do have access to those as well. And Maria, that made me think, like you said, you have some students who are at much lower reading levels, so you might find some more explicitly scaffolded materials within the ELD books, in addition to the ELA pieces.
Thank you for that resource. And here's a bonus question. So if, because I haven't used it on Google Classroom, does it correct the work? Does it correct the work?
Correct it like if it's multiple choice, like,
yes,
what do you mean
like
by that?
Multiple choice. I don't know if there's like a multiple choice component to it, and if there is, or do I and can I think you answered this question earlier, if I can just modify some of the work on top of that already.
Correct. You should be able to within your ebook, because you can assign portions. You can change the instructions for what it is that you're assigning to students. So rather than the whole activity, maybe you're assigning a portion and you're modifying the instructions there. Like, here are 10 questions, you're doing numbers 2, 5, and 7. And within Google Classroom, I know if you use the assessments in SpringBoard, those will auto score. Many of the activities, though, are going to have some sort of a constructed response component, and that won't be able to be scored by the computer. But the assessments will.
Thank you so much for your help.
You're welcome. Did my camera change to my document camera when I uploaded that? Do you see like an upside down page now instead of my face? Yes. Nobody even told me. Look, I'm back. Oh wait, now I see more. Okay. Will we have access to online novels and plays? So if so we currently have all of our core texts available to us via Overdrive, or I guess on the student end it is called Sora. It is a digital library, and all of our core texts are available there. So that's like your To Kill a Mockingbird, your Romeo and Juliet, or Tangerine, or The Giver. Those books all live there. And then we also just recently purchased a program called Myon, which is a digital library that students and staff have access to, that has a huge variety of independent reading books, as well as like some of the classics, all sorts of stuff. Kelly, is there discussion about how to support ELA classes that will have all TR students? Contractually, ELA classes cannot have all TR students. We follow a two-thirds, 1/3 model, even during this distance learning. I know that there was some original discussion about modifying that, but that's not in line with our district policies or our English learner plan. Overdrive, yep, I can share Overdrive. That I can do. Oh, actually, I can even go one step further, Miriam. I will share with you guys a document called SUHSD Access to Reading and Text. And so within this document here, and I will put it up on our I will put it up on the resources as well. There's information about how to access Overdrive, how to access Myon, how to access a couple other tools as well. All of those links are still standing as what did I just do? Still standing as well. Let me put it in the resources here. So that's on that slide for you guys. Okay. Oh, what did I do again? Hold on. I did so well until the end here, guys. My screen got all big. Okay. Okay, some other questions. So Marilyn, you said, I just noticed when you access the text in the ebook and have the Cami app, you're given the option to open the text via Cami. Yep, it's pretty cool. You can annotate the PDF. Krista, what makes someone a TR student? A TR student is a student in our district who is an English learner that has not yet reclassified. So typically they're going to usually, not always, but usually be a long-term learner. So they've been in our California school systems for more than 5 years, Becky? 5? Okay, 5 years. And they'll have that TR indication on their student schedule until they reclassify out of the English learner program. Do I have a Cami resource? I don't. Look, so Marilyn posted about that, and I had someone tell me that they attended a Cami session over Teach Prep. I know people like it, but I don't know much more than that. So I'm sorry, Maria. I wouldn't be the person for Cami. But it looks like Marilyn Vieira had commented about that. I was trying to make this bigger for you. I don't know what I did. I lost my whole screen, so now you can you can see my notes too. That's fine though. I'm fine with that. So we've got about 10 minutes left together. Again, any questions that you might have, I'll do my best to answer. Miriam, I think your audio is wrong because you sound like a bird. Let's try it again. Okay. It was kind of like chirp, 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 chirp. So I couldn't hear you. While Miriam's typing, I'm also going to say, I hope everybody signed in. That's how you get paid. I want to make sure you get paid. Oh, how do teachers access Overdrive? Via those instructions I linked for you. Let me find them here. Jump over to this tab. So you actually access them via student instructions. So if you want me to walk you through accessing like the Sora account, we can do that. So via the staff portal, you're going to go to the SUHSD applications link. Again, I don't know why we have 2 single sign-ons, but we do, but that's not in my realm of control. So that's just, we do. Let's see if I have anything assigned to me. Okay, so I signed into the SUHSD applications portal, and then there's one right here. It says the Sora app, and if I click on that, it'll open up Sora. Sora is the application, the reader to use Overdrive books. If you have a public library card, you might have access to this like on your phone or with your public library card. It's pretty cool. But this is just like our own in-district digital library. Let's see if this one loads. Story of my life. There we go. I just had to like threaten it. Okay, so I'm going to sign in using the Salinas Union High School District, which I thought I already did, but sign in for another chance. So I'm signed in as the Salinas Union High School District. Sora right now is offering us some free audio or free books that kids can have access to. I have that linked on our document as well. So there's just some free books kids can get access to, but I can go in and explore all my books. Go here. 30, well, I should be able to see all of them. Hold on. View all books. So these are all the books we currently have access to. Some of these are those free ones that Overdrive posted. Like I did not purchase SpongeBob books. Let's just make that clear from the get-go. Like those are being offered to our kids right now, but our core books will be in here probably on the second page or towards the bottom. So like here's To Kill a Mockingbird, Tangerine, Romeo and Juliet, The Giver, Seed Folks. If you're teaching an ELD class, we've got Their Eyes Were Watching God. We've got This Boy's Life that 12th grade had used. And for example, if I am going to borrow one of these books, it's going to check it out to me, and I've got access to it both online and offline, and I can annotate it and mark it up and do all of the things with it. But let's let it check out and see if my internet can maintain all of these tabs and a video call. That's my new superpower. I don't know if anybody, we had to buy more internet. I've never had to buy more internet. Like I went over my cap on internet. I didn't know that was a thing until I had to buy more. All right, so now I'm in the book. So I have the ability to go in and click on like the settings. This is kind of cool. So in the reader settings, you've got some students with disabilities or IEPs. They require like a bigger text, or you need like the dark view or the high contrast. You could play around with the different settings here. Kids can do that. There's also accessibility sizes. So for like our visually impaired students. And then I think this is super cool. You can navigate between different font types, and Sora has access to the open dyslexic font, which bottom weights all of the letters, which makes it less likely for a dyslexic student to like flip-flop letters because they're bottom weighted instead of equally weighted or with serif. So Vicky, you might like this. But that's just a cool resource to have, that font right there. But yep, so you can make it bigger, make it smaller. It pauses where you're at, and you don't need it. You don't need internet once you check the book out. So all of our core books are in Sora, and we've got supplemental books over in Mayan right now. Closing not all my tabs, but a lot of my tabs. If that helps. So with that, guys, we just have a couple minutes left. Please make sure you signed in. Please make sure you fill out the session eval. I appreciate the feedback, and let me know if you need any one-to-one coaching or meeting. I believe there's a question at the end that says if you want to meet with someone, that's me. Fill it out, and that'll let me know. Like I said, I believe we're going to be offering some opt-in professional development that first week before school starts. But I just found out, so I don't have anything scheduled. I can't like tell you what I'm going to do because I don't even know what I'm having for lunch today. I need a little bit of time, but I'll get a schedule out so that folks can sign up and opt in. And I really appreciate you taking 2 hours out of your Friday to be here with me. Wasn't what I originally had planned today. I was supposed to be in Paris, but I'm not in Paris because we can't travel and no country wants us. So here we go. I'm at home. That should work, Jose.